The White House says the U.S. government will keep increasing its involvement with and ownership of private companies. The Trump administration recently took a 10% stake in Intel, arguing the deal was great for both the company and the country. The stake paid for by grants awarded to Intel under the CHIPS Act. Trump said on Truth Social that the deal is already creating jobs and wealth. His economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, told CNBC that Intel is just the beginning.
I think this is a very, very special circumstance because of the massive amount of CHIPS Act spending that was coming Intel's way. But the president has made it clear all the way back to the campaign that he thinks that in the end, it would be great if the U.S. could start to build up a sovereign wealth fund. And so I'm sure that at some point there'll be more transactions, if not in this industry, in other industries.
Jeffrey Lacker is the former president of the Richmond Federal Reserve. Thanks so much for joining.
My pleasure.
So first, big picture, is this a case of the U.S. government picking winners and losers? I mean, there was a time when particularly the Republican Party would say the government should not be picking out private companies, particularly with its own money. But is that what's happening here?
To some extent. I mean, it's propping up Intel, adding equity to their balance sheet. More broadly, I think the more corrosive effect is just the lack of separation between ownership and control. It's fine for the U.S. to take an equity stake in a company, but to exercise the leverage over corporate decision making is the kind of thing that in the long run is not good for an economy. I think we've seen that internationally. Countries that go down this road of extensive state ownership of private corporations don't usually have good results. This is the kind of nationalization that the Republican Party, you're correct, used to rail against, kind of socialism that was derided by them, and I think rightly so. So, yeah, this is not a welcome development in economic policy, in my view.
In Intel's security filing, it warns that the U.S. government's 10% stake could actually hurt its international sales, especially considering 76% of its revenue comes from outside the U.S., nearly a third from China. Is that a reasonable cause for concern?
I don't have any reason to doubt their claim. And, more broadly, I think, the world has experience with countries using particular institutions as national champions, sort of championing their interests overseas. For example, the banking industry, which I'm more familiar with, is in the great financial crisis experienced this. The position of different nationalities and regulatory bodies with regard to their own institutions made for a system that was brittle and didn't work very well, and I think we've come to regret it.
Yeah, if you look back to the 2008 financial crisis, the argument the government made at the time with the investments, for instance, in the financial corporations, but also the auto industry, right? Because the government, in effect, took a stake, which it eventually, as I understand it, made money on and then sold, was that was a crisis, right? A moment where those companies and those banks might very well have failed. Is this a different situation? Does it meet that crisis threshold, as it were?
No, and it doesn't seem like it. I mean, Intel is a thriving, going concern, maybe not as, robust economic results recently as some other tech companies, but it doesn't seem likely to go bankrupt anytime soon. So I don't think we're facing what the U.S. faced with the auto industry back in 2008 and 9. And, back then you had to ask the question, if you do this, you're going to set a precedent that's going to come back to haunt you. It's going to affect bondholders, equity, investors, corporate decision makers for years to come. In part, what happened in 08 and 09 with the auto industry was a byproduct of what happened in the early 1980s with the rescue of Chrysler Corporation and Lockheed by the U.S. government. So I think those types of bailouts and rescues inevitably corrode incentives, and they they induce the sort of fragility that bring on crises in the future. So it's kind of guaranteed to increase the probability of future crises from that point of view.
Yeah. So what do you take then from Kevin Hassett's comments there, saying that this is just the start? There are going to be others in other industries. It sounds like a far broader policy.
It does. I mean, it's consistent with what this administration has displayed by way of willingness to exercise maximum leverage over any of the entities it deals with in the private sector, be it education, corporations, and the like, to get what it wants, whether it's cultural results, economic results, or what have you. That's not a good prospect. The idea that anything you want from the U.S. government might be accompanied by might meet a request for some equity stake. I don't think that's going to put us in a better place as a country over time.
Are there any legal barriers to this? Is there? Can the companies? I mean, you hear from you hear companies, for instance, if you're talking about this wind project, which is slightly different, but off the coast of Rhode Island, you got a company saying, well, we thought we had a deal here, and we may be able to pursue some legal avenues. But are there any legal avenues when a U.S. president says, hey, I'm either killing this deal or I'm buying part of the company?
I'm not an expert on the legal arrangements around this, what rights the president has on this or not. I would think that with legislation the capabilities are quite extensive, but I don't know what legislation governs this investment in Intel. So I'm gonna have to beg off on that question. Sorry.
Well, Jeffrey Lacker, we appreciate you joining. Thanks so much for helping us understand this.
Thanks. Take care.